Now, as an expert fantasy ranker for Fantasy Pros, Rotoballer, and others, I'm constantly adjusting my rankings for the rest of the season to figure out who's going to give the most value down the stretch, especially when you talk about the fantasy playoffs. So I think this is a good time to give you my rest of season top 10 wide receivers to help you out. So let's get started. Talk about number one, and that's pretty easy. It's Davante Adams. I mean, can you imagine if we got a full 16 game season out of Davante Adams? He would be on pace for 1,800 yards, and he's averaging 112 per game. Also, one of the leaders in receiving touchdowns. And it's hard to imagine the people who are writing off Aaron Rodgers before this season, thinking that they could be all this shift and change. They don't need another wide receiver. Talking about getting Will Fuller, drafting wide receiver. I think Davante Adams is all they need. So it's pretty obvious he is the number one guy. Let's hope he stays healthy. Number two is going to be DeAndre Hopkins. But DeAndre Hopkins is still one of the leaders in targets, in receptions, and tied for the most 100-yard games on the season. That's 4 so far. So there's nothing to worry about with Hopkins. Okay, let's not forget the way he started the season is probably more likely the way he's going to end the season as an absolute target hog as his team tries to make the playoffs. All right, so number three, I'm going to go with my boy DK Metcalf. Who could have seen this coming? Well, I kind of did. I had him as my number one rookie overall, not just wide receiver, but my number one player from the NFL draft class in Dynasty last year. Loved Metcalf, loved him ever since, really since he was in college. But see what he's doing. It's no surprise. He's averaging 18.3 yards per reception, okay? And it's not just because he's playing deep threat. That's it. He's making huge plays over and over again. We've seen Russ cooking. Okay, Metcalf has 8 touchdowns. You could argue that he should be number 2 on this list. Honestly, the only thing, of course, is that he's on a team that, yes, they're passing him more, but once Carson comes back, I feel like they're going to try to establish the run a little bit more. And Metcalf has been a little bit more, I guess we've seen a lot more fluctuation, some huge monster games. And then sometimes, he'll get taken out of the game script, but no worries about Metcalf. He is locked in as my number 3 guy. Number 4 is going to be Tyreek Hill, quietly putting up great numbers once again. What's interesting with Hill is not just the big plays and the massive yardage. He's scoring touchdowns at a rate just like these other big receivers I talked about, like, DK Metcalf and Davante Adams. He's got 8 touchdowns too. And you know what? It's interesting that he's third among all wide receivers in red zone targets. So you're not just relying on the big play down the field. I mean, Hill is truly a wide receiver 1 for both real life and fantasy. Number 5, speaking of red zone opportunities, Julio Jones. Not being sarcastic there, he's actually the 5th wide receiver in terms of red zone target total. Not converting quite as many touchdowns, but they'll come. Let's not worry too much about Julio because he's also 4th as far as receiving yards per game. There's nobody you can trust more than Julio as far as week in, week out. The floor is just as high as you can get. Again, just I hope that he's going to stay healthy on the field the rest of this season. Number 6, a guy I feel like is always underrated in fantasy, and that's Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is 2nd in the league in receptions right now. And you know what? His quarterback, Justin Herbert, as amazing as his rookie year is going to be, I think he's going to be offensive rookie of the year personally. And he just keeps getting better. So with Keenan Allen there, he is a true target hog. You have to have him locked in. Talk about a high floor. Actually, Allen should probably get the high floor award this year. Now, Michael Thomas has been a really big disappointment, but not because of what he's done on the field. He just hasn't been on the field. It was so many different things, 2 different injuries, a suspension. Let's just hope that's all behind him. I think it is. All right. Played and looked fine against San Francisco. And so now going into the rest of the season, you've got to have him as a top 10 receiver. He may not be the number 1 guy like he was last year, but it doesn't really matter. He's a guy that you should be able to trust week in, week out. I have him as my number 7 receiver, just a little bit below those guys I mentioned. Number 8, a guy that, again, arguably could be higher, and that's Stefon Diggs. Diggs right now leads the NFL in targets. He also has 4 100-yard games on the season. Josh Allen's favorite target, without question. Will this Buffalo pass offense continue the pace it has been on? I don't know. Probably not. But again, if you're getting targeted that much, it's okay. It's okay if every week isn't a huge monster week. Diggs has that connection, and that's what matters. He's got his quarterback's trust, and he's going to get the ball every single week. Number 9, my boy, Scary Terry. You got to love Terry McLaurin. He has shown that he is completely quarterback proof. Doesn't matter who's back there. So even if it's Alex Smith the rest of the season, I don't care. You know what? Saw what happened last time. Got that pass, broke tackles, turned it into a long touchdown. He can do that. So, and here's the encouraging thing with him, even if he doesn't get targeted as much as we would like to see, he has the highest team air yard percentage. 44% of Washington's air yards go to him. Not surprising, and of course it shouldn't be, because who else are you going to throw to? It's got to be Terry McLaurin. And then number 10, I'm going to go with Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson, always dependable. Talk about quarterback proof. This is kind of the definition of it. Nick Foles is getting a little bit better as the year goes on, throwing for more and more yardage. And I feel like you have to like Robinson's chances, not just because of his target share, but looking at the playoff schedule, you might not know this. Allen Robinson has got the most favorable schedule. Weeks 14 through 16, going to face Houston, Minnesota, and Jacksonville, some of the worst secondaries in the league. So keep that in the back of your mind. Trade deadlines are ending. I know if you watched our trade deadline episode that Chris did, you know, some sneaky buy low and trade opportunities to take care of right now when you get the chance. You know what? If someone isn't sold on Robinson as a top 10 wide receiver, make a move and get him right now for some other guys that are maybe disappointing you. All right, hopefully that helps. Those are my top 10 rest of the season wide receivers. Did I miss somebody? Is there somebody that you feel like should be in there that didn't make the cut? Let us know. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment here, and catch also the running back edition of rest of the season rankings right here too on the end game. All right. Thanks.